Hi, campers. Happy Friday. I hope you've all been having a really safe and fun week. And I hope you're just as excited about today as I am. For today, the materials that you're going to be needing are really simple. You're just going to be needing a pencil and some paper and some colored pencils or crayons if you decide. It really doesn't matter, just as long as you can color with them. To start us off, I want you all to think about some of your favorite cartoons and movies. And if you don't watch TV or movies, like think of any video games or books or toys that you really like. For me personally, I really love the show Steven Universe. If you've heard of it, it's really great. I really recommend it. And the movie Up. Today we are going to actually be learning how to use shapes to create our own characters by looking at these two examples that I mentioned. So I'll show you what I mean. In this first example, you can see Carl and Ellie are two main characters from Up. Uh, Carl is composed of mostly squares. You see that even his lamp is square, his mug is square. Then when we look at Ellie, we see that she's mostly composed of circles. And what this tells us is that these are two very different people, but when they're together, there's a balance. And then, of course, when there's balance, there's happiness. And when we move on to Steven Universe, when we ask ourselves, okay, what kind of shapes do we see here? We see that Steven is mostly made out of circles, and if you watch the show, you know that Steven's this really fun, really warm character, and Amethyst is composed of like a square and a circle. You know, she's a little more serious. Garnet, on the other hand, is mostly squares, and she's really serious and kind of like the boss of the show. But when we move on to the villains of our stories, we realize that a lot of them are composed of triangles, especially here where the villain in Up is actually looks pretty evil on the first sketch, and then in the middle you see that he looks a little nicer, but don't be fooled, he's still pretty much an evil dude. But then when we look at White Diamond, who is the main villain in Steven Universe, we can see that she is completely made out of triangles, telling us that most of the villains that we encounter will be made out of triangles. Most of our heroes will almost always be made out of circles and squares. And we have to ask ourselves, well, why is that? Well, the reason is that mostly squares and circles usually tell us that characters are either cool, strong, they're brave, they're warm, they're fuzzy, they're welcoming. But when characters are made out of shapes like triangles, that usually tells us that these characters are either evil or mysterious or just characters you want to watch out for. So now I want you to take out your sheet of newsprint and I want you to start drawing shapes, just like I'm doing here. You're going to draw a square first, a triangle, and then you're going to move on to a circle. Now, what I want you to do next is going to be really fun. I want you to turn each of these shapes into a head. So what does a head usually have? They have a nose, they have eyes, of course, they have eyebrows, they have hair, they have smiles. So see if you can try to emulate what I'm doing here. Don't forget the ears, of course. So what I'm gonna ask you to do next is really simple. So now that you've drawn one head with one shape, you're now gonna draw one head with two shapes. So you can mix and match these shapes. Just try to stick to squares and circles, kind of like how I'm doing right now. So yeah, just have as much fun as you can, or you can just copy what I'm doing. Eventually, we will be turning these shapes into more complex characters, more interesting characters than just the one shape. So yeah, just follow my lead now. And another important thing to mention is that you should try to draw as lightly as possible because you are going to be drawing over these things. But then again, don't worry about it too much because this is just practice for the eventual final that you'll be having. So once you finish your drawings, now you can start adding the details of the face. Kind of how we did it last time. Remember to add your eyebrows, your eyes, your nose, your ears, your hair. Just have a lot of fun with where you place all of these facial features. You can even give your characters like facial hair if you want, or like jewelry, or any kind of hair. Again, just have as much fun as you can with these things, and don't worry about it looking silly or anything like that. Honestly, the sillier the better with these things. For our next exercise, we're actually going to be mixing these shapes, but instead of just working on heads, we're actually going to be working on full bodies. So at this point, I want you to mix 3 different kinds of shapes, and out of these 3 shapes, we're going to be making full characters. I'm kind of just making this up as I go. I'm going to start off with 2 circles and a rectangle. Then I'm going to head into just another rectangle, a small square, and let's say a triangle. We can start off with the head for sure. We can start off by adding some features to the head, like say perhaps some glasses or some hair. I'm gonna start off right here at the top. I'm gonna lighten it a little just so I can see better. Draw very lightly so that you can of course see what you're drawing later. But yeah, I'm just gonna start off with the hair now, and not really thinking about it, but trying to have as much fun as I can with the shapes that I have, and making sure that I use each shape to define the body of this character that I'm drawing. So now that we have our sketch is finished, now we're going to move on to our white sheets of paper, which again you can find in your folders, and we're actually going to draw another full-bodied figure, starting with basic shapes. I started off with 2 circles and a rectangle. And when you're finished with that, remember, draw lightly. You're actually going to go over it and start adding the features that we mentioned earlier. So the features of the face, of course. You can start adding the arms. You can start adding the clothes, shoes. I chose to add an ice cream cone because I really love ice cream. And then when you're finished drawing that, you can actually go in with your colored pencils and you can just start coloring in your character in whatever way you want. And of course, after you're finished, you can add your own background to it and really just have fun. So now you should have a pretty good idea of how to create your own characters using just basic shapes. It's a really fun exercise, and I really hope that you enjoyed this, and I really hope that you really take advantage of using a variety of shapes to make whatever characters you want. Thank you again for joining me on this Friday. Have an awesome weekend, and I hope to see you again next week. Stay safe, be blessed, take care. Bye.